B'Shem Hashem Na'aseh v'Natzliach, Shiur Torah, Bruchim Habayim. We're back here on our Tuesday night series, War of Amalek, the final war before Moshiach Tzidkenu will arrive. Tonight's shiur is certainly going to answer a lot of questions that people have in regards to this whole war and all of the self-hating Jews that are unfortunately causing a lot of harm to the Jewish people more than anyone else. Tonight's shiur is going to be for the Refuah Shlema and Hatzlacha Rabba for Rav Ephraim ben Shulamit, Rabbanit Sarah bat Anat, Rabbanit Levana bat Sarah, Sarah bat Levana, Ovadia ben Levana, Yosef ben Levana, Naomi bat Sarah, and Sarah bat Sarah. And also the shiur was sponsored by our dear friend Shmuel Levi. May HaKadosh Baruch Hu bless him with bracha v'atzlacha b'kol ma'aseh yadav, chaim arukim shlemim meleim Torah mitzvot v'gemilut chasadim. Anyone that wants to sponsor the shiurim could go to one of the options that are available on our website, BeEzrat HaShem.org, BeEzrat HaShem.org. It's going to be on the screen. And BeEzrat Hashem, you'll have multiple options to sponsor these shiurim and acquire the merit that these shiurim have with the Baruch HaShem countless people that watch them throughout all of the years, and also the countless mitzvot that are created as a result of these shiurim. And tonight is like many others, but unlike many others, as you'll see from some of the things we'll be discussing. Also, to give you guys a update on the campaign to help poor Jews that are in Eretz Yisrael during this Shavuot, as we do each year. We have a campaign to help poor Jews. This year we're actually, for Shavuot specifically, we're focusing on Jews that are in the north, in Tveria. There is hundreds of families that we've already committed to helping them for the holidays, and to get them some food, to get them some basic necessities that they need for the holiday, especially now that they've been under attack in this horrific war that now the Hezbollah has joined and is causing a lot of damage, fear, and all types of other things in the north part of Israel. So this is certainly changing the circumstances, and we're going to do whatever we can to help them. So anyone that wants to join us by donating, you can go to the campaign that we have for Shavuot. You'll have that again also available on the message boards and the WhatsApp groups. There's a link specifically for that. But you could always donate on the regular website, BeEzratHashem.org or bhtorah.org, and simply send us a note to let us know that it's specifically for this specific campaign. We only have a few days before the holiday, which is the reason why we had to already commit to make the purchase, to do whatever we can to help the families. Baruch HaShem, if we get more, we always take advantage of helping more people than we originally intended. But point being is that we have to do something. And as the Chachamim teach us, that when a person gets an opportunity to do tzedakah, but simply turns away, he doesn't want to. He doesn't feel like it. He wants the money in his pocket. He wants the money, in his bank account, in his portfolio. Rabbi Yoshua ben Kocha says, anyone who turns his eyes away from somebody that's seeking tzedakah, that's seeking charity, it's as if he is worshipping idols. As it's written in the Sefer Dvarim, the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 15, verse 9, where it says, beware that there will not be a base thought in your heart and your eye be evil against your poor brother and give him nothing. And the Chachamim teach that there's certain waste of low life types of people that have gone out and have drawn away the people of the city, saying, let's go to idol worship. Let's look away from this place and let's go to idol worship. So the sages from there teach that just like these waste of life types of idol worshippers misled others to go idol worship by making them look away from Hashem, making them look away from the Torah, making them look away from the community. The same goes for somebody who looks away from the community that's in need right now when he has or she has the opportunity to help. So giving charity is not something that is simply a suggestion. It's an obligation by the Torah, and especially for people that have the means. So it's not something that a person is supposed to run away from, but rather look for. Either way, we're going to do whatever we can, and I'm sure that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will send us whatever is necessary to help. BeEzrat HaShem. So we have our series. Our series is certainly changing the perspective that many people have about this war. Really, the most people's perspective was that this war of Amalek is really going to be solely against the non-Jews. Between the Jewish people and the non-Jews, because everyone recognizes Amalek to be the idol worshippers, the ones that attacked Am Yisrael, in the desert, because they did not fear God and they did not want anyone else to fear God. But our sages have taught us that Amalek has 5 parts: the Nephilim, the Giborim, the Anakim, the Rephaim, and the Amalekim. These are five segments of Erev Rav or Amalek. Today, really, the names are synonymous, but the point is that there's 5 different types of these enemies of Am Yisrael, and they're not all non-Jews. In fact, the worst among them, the worst enemy of the Jews, has always been, historically speaking, the Jew has been his own worst enemy. The biggest damage caused to the Jews was by Jews, whether it's now or in the past. And as much as we suffered under Nazi Germany or the Spanish Inquisition, the destruction of the Bet HaMikdash, the first one, the second one, and all of the other tragedies that we've suffered throughout all of the years, the reality is that all of this tragedy started as a result of the damage caused by the Erev Rav. Whether it was the Erev Rav in the desert, bringing us to worship the golden calf, was Korach and his followers of 250 heretical rabbis going against Moshe Rabbeinu, the Tan Va'aviram, clearly an Erev Rav, or it was the Mityavnim, those Jews that decided to side with the Greeks and actually go against the Torah. Or if it was different Jews that sided with Nazi Germany, even fighting in the Nazi army, killing their fellow brothers and sisters. And needless to say, all of the Sektia, Imach Shimam V'Zichram, these communists that join the battle against their fellow Jews by going with the Russians and literally doing everything they possibly could to destroy the Torah community. And turning an entire generation of Jews into secular atheists that are anti-Torah in certain parts of the world, specifically there. But Baruch HaShem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu promised us that He will never destroy us. We are His nation. He is our God. The Torah is indestructible, even though there's constantly enemies against it. But the Nephilim, the Giborim, the Anakim, the Rephaim, and the Amalekim, Shem Reshaim Yerkav, all of them are certainly, enemies of Am Yisrael throughout all of history. And some are the non-Jews, the Nazis of the world, and some are Jews. Some are those that are go specifically against Torah scholars, like the Anakim, like to go and cause any type of damage they can to Torah scholars, whether it's causing them financial problems or all types of other issues. There are certain Rephaim that do whatever they can to discourage people from donating to BeEzrat HaShem, our organization, or any other Jewish organization that actually has a righteous cause. There's certain types of people that are part of these Rephaim that will do whatever they can to get in the way of your hard-earned money actually going to a place that will do what it says it's going to do. And certainly there are giborim that unfortunately we practically see in every community, different level of reshaim that put themselves in leadership positions. Leadership positions in the synagogue, like a board of directors, calling the shots, deciding what the rabbi is allowed to say or not allowed to say, which rabbi is allowed to come to speak, which rabbi is not allowed to come and speak, or deciding what the tuition is going to be in the yeshiva, even though the teaching itself has not changed. Somehow these giburim continue to increase the fees, making it literally unaffordable for many people to send their kids to yeshiva. As I heard with my own ears just the other day, the organization URA was raising money. Part of their cause was, they give money to help people pay for yeshiva costs. I believe they give somewhere around $3,000 a year to different people, over a couple of thousand people that they fund each year. And this is supposed to help the tuition. And one of the horrible things, literally one of the worst things I heard in a long time, was that some of these yeshivot that are getting money from URA, to help the people, help the Jewish people go to yeshiva, instead of using this to pay for that tuition, what do? Now some of them, not all of them, are increasing tuition by $3,000. In so many words, they figure, since you're getting some free money from URA, let us get the full fee from you anyway. Meaning, instead of it being, part of the tuition, it is coming as an addition, like a bonus. They're looking at it. Literally, the lust for money is beyond all disgust. It's just disgusting. Really, really disgusting. It's really, I think when HaKadosh Baruch Hu said to us, don't follow the ways of your heart and the ways of your eyes. Certainly we always think of it as referring to immorality. But I believe in our generation we should also refer it to money. How people treat money, where they literally chase after money and they look at money and possessions and cars and houses literally with a lustful eye that's very disgusting, to the point where it's become self-destructive. Now, of course, with all of that self-destruction within our own religious community, there is a well-known but often misunderstood enemy of the Jews that are unfortunately enemies of Torah scholars specifically. They hate the Torah scholars with a passion and do whatever they can to represent Amalek, represent Erev Rav. And really the question is, why would one Jew hate his fellow Jews so much for practicing their Judaism? Now, if anybody needs proof of this, just look at what's happening in the Israeli government today. If it wasn't enough for them to fight against the Torah community over the last several months, where they're trying to force all Torah scholars to join the army, now they're passing a law that in Israel that they're going to punish the Torah scholars. How? Anyone that has a house has to pay taxes, just like you do in most countries in the world. You have to pay taxes. But in Israel, they want to make a new law. There are certain programs in Israel that allow people to have a discount from the arnona, is what they call it, the annual tax. But if you are a secular Jew, if you are not learning Torah, you have access to that discount. But if you are a Torah scholar, you no longer have access to that discount. You have to pay 100% of the tax. Why? Because you're a religious Jew. Literally, if this law was passed in Nazi Germany, I would not be surprised. But unfortunately, it's being passed in Israel. And this, Rabotai, is part of the war of Amalek, that we must all understand what we are fighting, why we are fighting, as the Roya Ne'eman, The Good Shepherd told us last week in the Shiur, Moshe Rabbeinu told us that this fight is beyond just the things that you see in the news or the things that you even see in your community. This is a supernatural war that will continue until Moshiach arrives and destroys Amalek. But for now, in order for us to have a chance to win this war, to overcome this war, and most importantly, not to lose this war as individuals or as a nation, we have to understand the instructions that Rav Elchanan Wasserman left for us in his writings called Omer Ani Ma'asai LaMelech, where I say all of my work is for the king. So in the 5th section of this write-up by Rav Elchanan Wasserman, again, this is written prior to the Holocaust. Prior to the Holocaust. And Rav Elchanan Wasserman is saying, Kol hamitbonen היטב לנעשה אצלנו כעת, ימצא בדברים האלו תמונה נוראה של דורנו. איך כל הדברים האלו מתקיימים במלואם לעיני כל ישראל. He says, anyone that pays attention to all of the things we said in last week's shiur, where there's a war against the Torah community, specifically against Torah scholars, there is an attack against anyone that is trying to promote the Torah, there is literally a secularism where, to the extent where it's become a religion. Atheism is a religion. It's not a belief in a non-God. It is a religion. And in fact, as we discussed in the previous lectures of this series, atheists are by far the most aggressive missionaries out of all religions. And this causes a domino effect of damage to the Jewish people. When there's more atheism, there's more communism, there's more hatred of the Torah, there are more laws against the Torah. This causes a domino effect of a deterioration of the generation, a deterioration of the morality. The misbehavior becomes, by some people becomes, by many people, becomes more common. And Rav Wasserman is saying anyone that pays attention to what we've said during the first 4 lectures of this series will see that all of these things are actually happening in our generation. And of course, he's referring to his generation that was the generation of the Holocaust. This is literally written just a few years before he was murdered by the Nazis. But the reality is that if we see the holy words of Rav Elchanan Wasserman in our days, it is no different than the prophecies that we saw in the Tanakh coming true in front of our eyes. Everything that was happening at the time of Rav Wasserman is happening again today. The war against the Torah community is running rampant. It is something that the eyes don't want to acknowledge and the ears don't want to hear, but the reality is that we all have to face it, because there's a new heretic born every day, new podcast of heresy coming out, new laws against the Jewish community, literally week after week. And some of the people instituting these laws, some of the people declaring a war against the Torah, have a kippah. Have a kippah. We're not talking about just people that are like Avigdor Lieberman, Shem Reshaim Yerkav, that is a notorious enemy of the Torah and hates the Torah with a passion no different than the Adolf Hitler. No, we're not talking about it like that. We're talking about there are some people that are actually fighting against the Torah with a kippah on. So the enemy does not have a certain look. Some have a kippah on, some don't have a kippah on. Some have Jewish family, some do not. Some are completely Gentiles that have never even met a Jew before. Amalek comes in all walks and sizes. And Rav Wasserman says, pay attention to these words because you're going to see the Torah come to life. You're going to see the Torah come to life. Now, of course, many people always say, if they're not familiar with Torah enough, say, yeah, but you rabbis always bring the things that are happening and you say that it's in the Torah, but that's only after the fact. It's a very foolish thing to say, as Rav Ephraim explained, where the Torah was already written. The Torah was already written 3,000 years ago. We were gifted the Torah 3,300 years ago. And this was written. The fact that it's happening now, it's not that we found it after the fact. We didn't know what to look for until it happened. But once we know what to look for, the things that are happening, we look for it in the Torah and we see, oh, the Torah already has it. And with all of the different things that people say, well, where were the rabbis before the Holocaust? Perhaps you did not read the history. Perhaps you did not read Rav Ephraim's Sefer Ochachot V'Tochachot that we give out in our store for free. Many boxes came out today, Baruch HaShem. We're almost out of copies, both in Israel and in America. There's probably less than 1,500 or 1,000, if that many. But one of the sections in this Sefer talks about some of the warnings. We're not going to go through all of the warnings. We've done that before in the past, but just to give you a little reminder. Where were the rabbis before the Holocaust? Of course, everyone knows what we've mentioned many times where Rabbi Yisrael Misalant, nearly 90 years before the Nazi camps started killing Jews on a systematic basis, he already warned that this is going to come. Right after the Reform sect of Judaism that decided they want to change the Torah, they want to change the laws, they want to abandon the Torah, and they wrote a new Shulchan Aruch. And Rabbi Yisrael Misalant says about this new Shulchan Aruch by Geiger, Yimach Shimo, that the day is going to come where Hashem is going to send the Gentiles to remind us of the laws. And that's actually what happened with the Nuremberg laws. But aside from that, we also have promises from the Torah, where it's not cursing, it's not wishing bad, it's just simply, if it's written in the Torah, it must happen if certain conditions are met. And nearly 800 years ago, Rabbeinu Bechaye says on the parts of the Torah, it talks about the tochacha, the curses in Parashat Bechukotai. He says that there's a certain disease that the Torah is referring to. This disease is called shachafat. And he gives details of this disease. And anyone that has done research, or like I said, has read the Sefer by Rav Ephraim, sees that in the ghetto, Lod, this same shachafat hurt 50% of the Jewish people in the ghetto. 10% died from it. And it gives the details of all the things that happen from this disease that the Torah already predicts will happen if we abandon the Torah. So when a person looks at the details of the Torah, What it promises will happen if we do good, what it promises will happen if we go against the Torah, they're not going to be surprised. Scared, but not surprised. And Rav Wasserman is telling us right now, in the year 2024, according to the Gregorian calendar, look around and compare it to the words in this writings, and you will see all of this come to life in front of your eyes. And he says, in our days, right before the Moshiach is arriving, we see כופרים שהם מנהיגי הדור ואינם מניחים לתלמידי חכמים להרם ראשם זולתי למחנפיהם ומחלכי פנחה שלהם. Rav Wasserman is saying, look, you have kofrim, heretics, as the leaders of the generation. And these heretics that are leading the generation don't let the real Torah scholars, don't let the real Talmidei Chachamim even raise their heads, except if that scholar is willing to kiss up to them and work for them and do their dirty work for them. ולוחמים עם התורה מלחמה גלויה ביד רמה. And these heretics are fighting against the Torah in the open. They're not hiding it. They're not hiding it, Rabotai. This is the one thing that's baffling. Many times people do horrible things, but they hide it. They have some type of shame. They don't want to get caught. They don't want to be exposed. Today, people have no problem fighting against the Torah. They have no problem doing things that are literally Torah violations, even if they're wearing a kippah. So Rav Chaim told me there was one time that he needed some help from some government official. But to reach this guy, you needed to go through somebody. So he reached somebody that's within the community, let's just say. I told him, listen, I need to talk to this person. I need his help with something that's very important for Am Yisrael. Now this so-called religious person says to Rav Ephraim, well, it's going to cost you a lot. Rav Ephraim's like, what do you mean it's going to cost? I don't understand. He's like, well, listen, just for me to have dinner when I go out is 700 shekels, about $250. And that's just for me. Well, this person you want me to take out, surely I'm going to have to take them out. And not just once, not twice. I'm going to have to wine and dine him for a little while before I can even present this idea of yours to him. So you have to decide what your budget is. I can assure you, we didn't do any of it. No meetings, no dinner, and I have no idea who needs to eat $700 worth of food per day, but apparently, or 700 shekels worth of food per day, but apparently this guy does. But he had no qualms about his horrific behavior. This is what he does for a living. And these Erev Rav, these enemies of the Torah, are surrounded by these types of people that are willing to be a mechanif, be a flatterer, present themselves as if they are presenting the Torah community, but in reality they're presenting themselves. What does the Torah say about these flatterers? 700 years ago, we had a sage from the family of the Ramban. His name was Rabbeinu Yona of Girondi. He wrote one of the most fundamental books in the Jewish world, that if you read this book, within the first couple of pages, you start crying. After the first chapter, you're almost in a panic. By the time you complete the second chapter, you're a different person. By the time you complete the book, you realize you have a whole lot more to go. Rabbeinu Yona is one of the Rishonim, and he writes in the third gate, section 187, the class of flatterers. What does the Torah think about them? Those people that kiss up to the government, kiss up to all types of leaders, religious and not, in order to rub elbows with them, in order to be their so-called messengers. What does the Torah think about these flatterers? It says the first category of flatterers, says Rabbeinu Yona, who recognizes or sees or knows that his fellow man's hand is tainted with sin and that he is embracing lies. But he smooth talks him with an evil tongue and he says, "No, you've committed no wrong, Mr. Criminal." I added the Mr. Criminal part. You haven't committed anything wrong. Yael Pig, you did anything wrong. Shai Piron, you did anything wrong. Nah, come on. Bibi, you did anything wrong. No. You guys mean well. You want for the better of the people. The people don't understand what's happening behind the scenes. You guys know because you guys see the whole picture. They literally make them into a little mini God. The waste that comes out of the human body, they're not even worth. But these flatterers make them think that they are a God. These Baalei Nidot, these adulterers, these heretics, these wicked thieves that steal from their own people. They get flattered left and right. And what are they flattered with? People compliment them for all the things they never did. So Rabbeinu Yona says, those people, those people, what's going to happen to the flatterer? The wicked person, in the end he goes to Gehenom, Gafakela. There's a whole cheshbon. He has a whole account of what all the different chambers he's going to go spend time in. But what about the flatterer? What about the flatterer, the macher? What about the guy that somehow found himself sitting in the White House once a month? What about the flatterer that somehow finds himself in every important meeting as the so-called representative of the Jewish people? What about him? The flatterer, says Rabbeinu Yona, not only the flatterer committed a transgression of withholding the rebuke when he's supposed to rebuke according to the Torah, but he further sins by saying, "You have not sinned," and therefore he has strengthened the hands of the Reshaim, of the evildoers. And this in itself is a serious transgression that's in the hand of this foolish flatterer. For he is not zealous for the truth. He abets falsehood, declaring evil to be good and making light into darkness. Just like all heretics, they all minimize the sin. They all turn evil into good and good into evil. And he, therefore, this flatterer, places a pitfall before the sinner from two vantage points. One, the sinner that stole from his people, that lied to his people, that's misleading the people, that's going against God, that's violating Shabbat, that's cheating on his wife, that's doing all these things. He tells him, you did nothing bad. So now this sinner that typically would have some type of conscience and feel bad about his evil, he no longer feels bad. Why? You told him you haven't done anything bad. You have a lot of stress on your head. You have a lot of pressure. Everyone doesn't understand you. He justifies his sin. And he repeats his foolishness the next day, since the wicked flatterer has praised him in his heart's desire. And on top of all of this, the flatterer will bear punishment for the harm that he caused the person who this sinner is doing to. This sinner that's stealing from people, the sinner that's lying to people, the sinner that he's kissing up to, he's going to keep having more victims. Because especially now that you have justified his sins, you're going to have to pay, you the Mr. Flatterer, with or without kippah, you're going to have to pay for those crimes. Because by justifying the one who sinned, you, in essence, became a partner in the crime. And this is just the beginning of the punishments for the flatterer. Where the Torah commands us to destroy speakers of lies, and one who justifies the evildoer and condemns the righteous person is considered an abomination to Hashem. And the Magid Miduvna says, someone who's matzdik rasha u'marshia tzaddik, someone who justifies the evil and condemns the righteous people that are speaking the truth, that is one of the signs of Erev Rav. You see people defending Manis Friedman, don't call them Rabbi anymore. Call them Erev Rav, whatever their last name is. And that's what the Magid Miduvna says. You justify the heretics, you justify the evil, you're Erev Rav. So now, Rabotai, Rabbeinu Yona tells us it's not a really good idea to be one of these chanfanim, these flatterers. But what can we do that there are plenty of those people? There are plenty of them. Says Rav Wasserman, they are fighting against the Torah, an open war, without hiding anything. Because they hate the Torah. They hate it with a passion. ולו היה אצלם שפה אחת ודברים אחדים, אז לא היה לנו תקומה מפניהם. And if they all of these enemies of the Torah, agreed on one thing, we would not have an ability to defend ourselves against them. If the heretics from the rabbinical world, and the heretics from the Zionist world, and the heretics from the politics, and the heretics that are promoting Christianity, and the heretics that are all types of other ones in between, the ones that are atheists, the ones that are secular, the ones, if all of these different types of heretics, all of these Erev Rav, spoke a single language and simply agreed on a plan, we would not be able to defend ourselves against them. אבל חסדי השם כי לא תמנו שהטיל ערבוביה מלהם שילחמו גם אלו כנגד אלו, but הקדוש ברוך הוא has kindness on us. And he does not allow them to all unite, and therefore they constantly fight between each other. They constantly fight between each other. Where להילחם נגד התורה, מואב ומדיין עושים שלום ביניהם. To fight against the Torah, Moab and Midian, that hated each other, united to fight against the Torah. But these different levels of Erev Rav, if they would unite, we would not be able to defend ourselves. והנה כתוב מלחמה להשם בעמלק מדור דור, והעידה התורה בזה, כי המלחמה הזאת קיימת בכל הדורות עד בוא המשיח. And it is written that the war of God against Amalek is from generation to generation. And that is what the Torah testified. Because this war against Amalek exists in all of the generations until Moshiach arrives. אלא שבדורות הקודמים את שלטון התורה בישראל ניהלו מהמלחמה. זרע עמלק מאומות העולם. That in the prior generations, the difference was that the control of the Torah was in Israel, and we fought against Amalek that was non-Jews, was the nations. Aval, something changed. What changed? מעת שפרקנו עול התורה בימינו, שרצו זרע עמלק בתוכנו. But because we abandoned the Torah, where not all Jews are religious, not all Jews are learning Torah, not all Jews are following what Hashem says, because we abandoned the Torah, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu allowed the seed of Amalek to come within us. ונתרבו בינינו המומרים להכעיס, כמו היבסקציה הנמצאים, לא לבד במדינה אדומה. And within us became a mix of heretics that come to anger God, such as he gives one example, the Yevsektia, that joined forces with the Red Nation, with Russia. But this, don't think this is just Yevsektia, he says. Kim bekol tfutzot Yisrael. This is all over Israel. Anywhere that there is a Jewish community, there is this Erev Rav. There is this mix. There is these enemies of the Torah. The bigger the community, the more Torah they produce, the more the Erev Rav looks to attack them, looks to attach to them. מקצה הארץ ועד קצה הארץ, וגם בארץ הקודש. This is from one end of the world until the other end of the world, including the Holy Land. See here, Rabotai Akarim, Rav Wasserman is telling us that these Erev Rav that come in all shapes and sizes, in the past, we identified a common denominator among the Erev Rav was typically that they were not Jewish. With some exceptions from time to time, generally speaking, Erev Rav were the non-Jews. That was the Amalek. But the further we got from the Torah, the more we left the door open for Amalek to enter. As the Kadosh Baruch Hu warns Cain in Parashat Bereshit, Lapetach Hatat Rovetz, that if you leave an opening for the Yetzer Hara will come and take over your entire house. When you allow weakness, the weakness can take over. And therefore, throughout the generations, more and more of this Erev Rav, more and more of this Amalek entered Am Yisrael. Where from corner to corner of wherever you find Jews in the world, whether it's in Australia or in England or America or Israel or Canada, wherever it is, you'll have some Jews there learning Torah, tzaddikim, and then you're going to have some Reshaim, Erev Rav, that want to destroy everything. And those people that are looking to destroy everything, they're usually the ones with money, with power, with control. They're usually the ones that are in the board of directors of the non-profit. They're usually the ones that are in the board of directors of the synagogue, even of the yeshiva at times. They're the ones that are in charge of some type of leadership positions, constantly. Part of leadership. Self-appointed leaders. Whether they're qualified or not is irrelevant. They put themselves in the places where they can become leaders. Even if that means befriending the outright anti-Semite enemies of Am Yisrael. Befriending Iran. Just in order to gain popularity. Like the Netuei Karta do. Befriending the Nazis. Like at the time of the Holocaust, those wicked heretics that abandoned their community and fought for the Nazi army, like those that joined the Greeks, those that joined the Spaniards, throughout all the generations we've had, traitors. And even now, Rav Wasserman says, Asher hamityavnim shama em otana yefsektia be'atzman ve'en shum evdel b'nehem. And he says, even in the other places, corner to corner around the world, including the Holy Land, there's all types of mityavnim, those that are becoming like the Greeks. No different than the Yefsektia. Some are writing their heresy in Yiddish, and some are writing it in Hebrew or other types of languages. There is no difference. אבל עלינו ועלינו נשבע הקדוש ברוך הוא שאין שמו שלם ואין כיסאו שלם עד שימחו מן העולם. Whether it's this one that's speaking Russian, Yiddish, German, English, Hebrew, whatever they are, or the others, those that are enemies of the Torah, those Amaleks, those Erev Rav, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says his name is not complete, and his seat, his throne is not complete until he wipes them out from the world. And this is a promise from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This is not Yonah, this is not a Rav Elchanan Wasserman. This is a promise from HaKadosh Baruch Hu that he has to wipe out Amalek. Now, why doesn't HaKadosh Baruch Hu just wipe them out? For the same reason of why he told Yeshua ben Nun not to destroy Amalek. After we fought them in the desert, Yeshua ben Nun was in a position where he was able to destroy Amalek. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Moshe to tell Yeshua ben Nun to stop, because he wants to leave them until the end of days in order to glorify his name. This is also the reason why the war of Gog and Magog, where all of the nations initially fight each other, but then eventually all gather together and go against Israel. This has to happen. This is not something that could have happened already. It has to happen. As the sages talk about it in the Zohar Kadosh and different Chachamim, in Chassidut, everywhere across the board that talks about this subject, this must happen, just like the prophet Zechariah said in chapter 14, or Yechezkel said in chapter 38. All of the big war that people want to avoid, it has to happen. Why does it have to happen? Because this is how HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to reincarnate all of the biggest enemies of Am Yisrael, the Par'os, the Nebuchadnezzars, the Titus, all of the Yoshkes, the Muhammads, all of the biggest enemies of Am Yisrael throughout all of the generation. He's going to reincarnate all of the most evil people, biggest enemies of Am Yisrael. He's going to allow them all to attack Am Yisrael at the same time, and thereby destroy all of the enemies of Am Yisrael and glorify his name. Because if it wasn't for the sake of glorifying his name, there is no reason for this world to exist. As the Gemara in Masechet Chagah says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world for the sake of glorifying his name. Now, of course, a lowly human does not understand what that means, because everybody thinks, oh, what? He needs it? He doesn't need anything. But the point being is that the reason why HaKadosh Baruch Hu has to have this final war, this massive war beyond comprehension. This is not going to be just a war of missiles and rockets and atomic bombs. This is going to be a supernatural war. A war that is going to involve a lot of things that are beyond the scope of anybody's knowledge right now. Unless you have Torah knowledge. There's going to be people that join Am Yisrael, that are part of Am Yisrael, that we don't even know they exist. They're going to come help the Moshiach. The 10 tribes are going to come from beyond the mountains. And they're all heroes. They're all very, very powerful people. They're going to come help the Moshiach. They're going to go fight against Amalek, fight against Gog. The war of all wars is going to make everything that happened until now into nothing. But this must happen in order for HaKadosh Baruch Hu's name to be glorified. Now, Rabotai Karim, here Rav Elchanan Wasserman is telling us that the enemy, whether Jew or Gentile, whether it's the Amalek, the Erev Rav, the Giborim, the Anakim, whatever sect of the enemy they're in, they're literally everywhere. The stronger, the bigger the Jewish community, the more enemy is within them. That's causing them harm, that's keeping down the Torah, that's torturing the Torah scholars, that's stealing from the community. The enemy is within. And therefore, a person that realizes this is everywhere is not going to be surprised by the reports that are coming out now, and already for the last several months, of how this recent war that started in Israel really only had success. The Hamas terrorists only had success of murdering thousands of Jews without a flinch, without anybody defending itself, because of some evil people within Israel in leadership positions that literally committed treason against their own people. There are different recordings, there are different statements, there are different investigations being done. Now, treason is not only illegal, it's literally the most vile, despicable thing that a person can do to his own people. But the more a person learns Torah, the more they realize that treason is a standard act of the Erev Rav. They're willing to do anything in order to gain power, even if that means killing their own people, even if that means letting their own people die. Just like the Zionists that were able to save 1 million Jews from the Holocaust towards the last years of the Holocaust. There was a deal, a famous deal, where the Nazis wanted trucks, coffee, and tea in exchange for 1 million Jews. But the Zionists did not want those million Jews, and they let them die. Rabotai Karim, this is not some conspiracy, this is a well-known thing. It's even in the court papers of Israeli government. There's books written about this. I've discussed this in the past. Now, the Erev Rav is willing to do anything and everything, including committing treason, including killing their so-called fellow Jews. We have to ask ourselves, why? Why do they hate their own fellow Jews so much? Especially the Torah scholars. We understand they're everywhere. We understand they're like cockroaches. We understand they are literally lethal, worse than poison, against their own people. But why? Why do they hate them so much? That's the big question we must answer today. HaKadosh Baruch Hu allows them to fight against each other in order for them not to unite, because if they would unite, we would not be able to defend the Torah community. On the other hand, they are literally in every corner. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu is eventually going to annihilate every single one of them. And on that day, says Rav Wasserman, woe to them and those that support them. But why? Why do they hate? The Gemara Masechet Pesachim, page 49b, will give us some details. גדולה שנאה ששונאים עמי הארץ לתלמיד חכם יותר משנאה ששונאים אומות העולם את ישראל, ונשותיהם יותר מהן. The Gemara is saying here, the hatred that Amei Haaretz, people that do not learn Torah, Jews that don't learn Torah, Jews that are ignorant of the Torah, secular Jews for sure, those that desecrate Shabbat, those types of people, the Torah says and testifies, they hate the Torah scholars. These Amei Haaretz, these ignoramuses, hate the Torah scholars to such an extent that their hatred is greater than the hatred that the Nazis hate Jews. And the wives of these Amei Haaretzot, the wives of these ignoramuses, hate the Torah scholars even more than the husband does. Pele Plaut. Wonder of wonders. We haven't answered the question yet. We're simply stating a fact here. The Amei Haaretz hate the Torah scholars with such magnitude of hatred that they literally hate them more than the Nazis, more than Hamas. They hate the Torah scholars. And the wives of these Amei Haaretzot, the wives of these ignorant people, Jews, hating Jews, their wives hate the Torah scholars even more than their husbands hate the Torah scholars. And worst of all, one who used to learn Torah, says the Gemara, Shana upiresh yoter mikhulan. One who used to learn Torah, went to yeshiva, even went to a kollel, but he went off the derech. He hates the Torah scholars more than everybody. More than everybody. So now that we have all of this information, we have to figure out what is the root cause of all of this hatred. What is the root cause of all of this hatred? Who is this Amei Haaretz? Why do they hate Torah scholars so much? I mean, after all, no one told you you can't be one. You want to be a Torah scholar, be a Torah scholar. You don't want to be a Torah scholar, leave us alone. Why do you have to hate us? What's the hate about? The Amei Haaretz are so jealous of Torah scholars because they see them as people that have superior traits, and that whatever they hold dear, such as their material possessions, money, cars, whatever they have, they realize that it's worthless in comparison to this Torah scholar and what he possesses, that no one can take away from him. And that jealousy burns within him, causing him to get to a point of hatred. And the wife hates even more. Now we're going to discuss what is the root cause of all of this hatred. Okay, jealousy, but you're going to say, no, listen. I don't like Torah scholars, but I'm not jealous of them. We'll explain that too. The one that left the derech, the one that used to learn Torah, but abandoned, hates even more than everybody else, because he, says Rashi, he knows what the Torah's opinion is of him and people that are Amei Haaretz. And that causes him to hate them. And that's actually something you've seen very often. People that abandon the Torah can't just move on their life in peace. They have to fight against the Torah. And one of the tools they use is the same thing like missionaries, where they go and take different parts of the Talmud and misinterpret it. Intentionally misinterpreting it in order to make it look ugly, in order to make it look like it's against everyone. Why? Because they know that the very same Talmud says that these people that have left the derech, Amei Haratzot, they're ignoramuses, you can't trust them. And as the Gemara continues, it says, who are these? What do we do with these Amei Haratzot? It says there are 6 laws pertaining to these Amei Haratzot, these ignoramuses. 1, we can't use them as witnesses because we can't trust them. We can't trust them. They don't follow God. They are not reliable to even be grateful to God. How can we trust them? We also don't accept their testimony because they can be bought off. Since they worship material, somebody with money could easily buy them off. We also don't reveal secrets to them, because certainly they're going to tell somebody else the secret, whether it's for money or for simply just sharing lashon hara, sharing gossip, sharing somebody else's secrets. We also don't appoint them as administrators of any type of estates of orphans. This is obviously a mistake that's constantly happening, where people that are Amei Haratzot are constantly in leadership positions. And the Torah specifically says not to put them in leadership positions. Why? For the same reason. They're always suspected of stealing, says Rashi. If they don't follow the Torah, they don't learn Torah, certainly they don't know the laws of this position. And thereby they're going to think that they're entitled to getting some type of remuneration. They're entitled to getting some type of payment. They're entitled to get a piece of the donations, a piece of the pie. People go and collecting for different organizations, and they have no qualms about taking 30, 40, 50% of the money to themselves, thinking, what? I raised the money, I deserve something. Rav Gidon ben Moshe said anyone that takes more than 5% is considered a thief. It's considered gezel gamur. Gezel gamur, he says. Take more than 5%. Even 5% is questionable, he says. Because in reality, you're supposed to do these charitable things for free. Either way, if a person's an Haaretz, can never put him as an administrator of the estate of the orphans, because we're suspecting them of stealing the money of the orphan. Because if they have no Torah, they have no Yirat Shamayim. If they have no Yirat Shamayim, they'll take even money from an orphan. We do not appoint them as administrators of charity funds. You're not allowed to have an ignoramus, an Am Haaretz, be one of the leaders of some type of charity fund, some type of non-profit organization, Torah organization, synagogue. And we do not even accompany them on a journey. Why? Maybe they'll kill us on the journey. Maybe they'll steal from us. So all of these things are the viewpoint of a Torah against somebody that abandons the Torah, somebody that does not learn Torah. They don't know the laws. They're going to act against the Torah. They're going to act like animals at times. In fact, Some Chachamim, the Gemara says, say we also don't even announce if they lost property. Meaning that there is a law that Ashavat Avedah, where if you find something and it has the identification on it, or you find something that has some type of signs on it, and you're in a Jewish community, you have to report, oh, I found this thing. Whoever can tell me what the signs are, and it's yours, I'll give it to you. Can't just keep it for yourself. But if you know that this person is an Haaretz, the Gemara says you don't have to return him. Why? Because that particular mitzvah of Ashavat Avidah is only referring to people that are part of your nation, people that are following the Torah. Not some Mechalel Shabbat, not some person that abandoned God. And that's actually one of the things that Rav Shlomo Sharvit, our Rosh Kollel, writes in his Sefer Emet Liyaakov, how this pertains to halacha, where there was a case where somebody that was a Haaretz gave money to a certain person, and then he died, and does that person have to give that money back to the family of this secular person, whether there's a Torah obligation to do it? Not, he says he's not obligated. The guy was a Mechalel Shabbat, he's really not obligated to give the money to his kids. The point being is, you can give it back. There's no like prohibition of giving it back. But the point is that when somebody's an Haaretz, the Torah treats him as a certain person that's not like a Torah scholar in any way, shape, or form. In fact, quite the opposite. And that's actually one of the things that makes a person that abandoned the Torah, who used to learn Torah and abandoned it, hate the Torah scholars even more. Now you would say, yeah, but I understand why he hates him. Look what they think of him. Yes, you're right. But you have to understand the reason behind it. And the reason behind all of this is that the original hatred of Torah scholars is much deeper than simply jealousy of their character traits. On this very same Gemara, in Masechet Pesachim, page 49b, the Chatam Sofer, a few hundred years ago, comments on it. And he writes, on this hatred that the Amei Haaretz hate the Torah scholars, greater than the hatred of the enemies of Am Yisrael hate Am Yisrael. Why is this hatred so much greater? Because Sinat Chinam, baseless hatred, is much worse than hatred that's dependent on something. Because if the hatred is dependent on something, let's say you hate somebody because you're jealous that they have more money than you. If that person loses the money, you no longer hate them. You don't have a reason to hate them anymore. Somebody got the job and you didn't get the job. If they get fired, you no longer have a reason to hate them. So you see, says the Chatam Sofer, the hatred that the nations hate Am Yisrael is based on something. As the Rambam writes in Igeret Teman, that the nations hate Am Yisrael because we received the Torah from Hashem at Mount Sinai. And they did not. And therefore, the ignorant Jews, the Amei Haaretz, that also stood at Mount Sinai, they hate the Torah scholars, not for the same reason as the nations. Their hatred is much worse. Why? Because they also received the Torah at Mount Sinai, they just simply reject it. Their hatred of Torah scholars is not relying on something. They have no reason to hate the Torah scholars. And in fact, it is sinat chinam, and the fact that it has no real reason makes that hatred even greater than a hatred that's dependent on something. And therefore the Chatam Sofer continues, their wives of these Amei Haaretz, hate even more. Why they hate even more? Because she also received the Torah at Mount Sinai like all of Am Yisrael. And she could have easily married a Torah scholar. Nobody stopped her from marrying a Torah scholar. But she decided not to do it. It was in her hand to do it, says the Chatam Sofer. But instead of choosing the Torah scholar, she chose somebody else. And now she's disappointed in herself. Why? Because her husband doesn't even know what tefillin is. He was recently invited to say Kiddush at a wedding. He didn't know the words. He didn't know the words to the blessing of Yain. He doesn't know Shema Yisrael. He's a chamor, doesn't even know how to say Shema Yisrael. The kids come from school, told him, Abba, tell us about King David. He thought they were talking about David Ben Gurion. You'd say, yeah, okay, so maybe he doesn't know Torah, but he knows other things. Yeah, but the wife knows there's a lacking in him. She also sees that Torah scholar that grew up in our neighborhood, look how polite he is, how calm he is, how happy he is. Look how happy his kids are. Our husband, he's not even home. He's hanging out on the beach, playing cards with his friends, gambling into the night. She's suspecting that he probably has one or two girlfriends. He doesn't want to come home sometimes. She realized she makes a mistake. And that makes her hate the Torah scholar because she could have married the Torah scholar. But she chose otherwise. And therefore, her claim against the Torah scholar is even less valid. Her reason to hate the Torah scholar is even less valid. And therefore, her baseless hatred of the Torah scholar is even greater than the hatred that her husband has. And then the Chatam Sofer moves on to the next point. He says, and the one that studied Torah and abandoned it, the Gemara says he hates more than everybody. Why? Because nobody told him that he has to abandon the Torah. Who told you have to abandon the Torah? You could have stayed learning Torah. You could have become a Torah scholar yourself. But he now chose otherwise. And he realizes that his life is miserable, is lowly, is meaningless. And he's just like the famous heretic, Yimach Shimo v'zichro, this guy named Yaron Yad'an, who since abandoning the Torah community, since abandoning God, since abandoning everything that is true, he has dedicated his life to fight against the Torah and literally will just speak to anybody that will pay attention to him, even if the person that's paying attention to him has no clue what he's saying. He goes on every podcast and every video and anybody that would literally talk to him. He's such a lowlife. He's willing to talk to anybody just so somebody can hear them. And he tells them some fake story of how he believes he used to be a Rosh Yeshiva, or he was supposed to be. The guy was barely an Avrech. He's a chamor. Doesn't know anything. Has been proven to be a liar and wrong in everything that he says time and time again. But he continues. Why? Because he realizes that he made a mistake by abandoning the Torah community. He realizes that he made a mistake. His life is meaningless. He has no break. He has no comfort. He has no nachat. He has no happiness from his marriage. No happiness from kids. No purpose in his life. Nothing. But he looks at the Torah scholars. He says, look at how much nachat Hashem gives them. Problems everybody has. But look at his face. He's happy. Look at his family. They're happy. Look at their purpose. They're living with a purpose. They're building something. Each day they build a little bit more, a little bit more. What does he live for? What do the heretics live for? They live to destroy. The same thing with this other heretic. This Rasha Merusha named Manny from New York, who came to my lecture, wanted to debate. The guy can barely add 1 plus 6. But he's proud of the fact that he convinced a few people to abandon the Torah. To abandon Torah and mitzvot. He's proud of it. He's also going to be proud at the level of Gehenom that he's going to get. But he continues. Nobody wants to talk to him. Nobody wants to acknowledge him. He gets kicked out of synagogues. He gets kicked out of everyone. No one wants to talk to him. Even his own family can't stand him. His wife left him. The kids barely want to talk to him. Nobody wants to talk to him. Nobody likes these people. But they keep latching on to different people. Please, listen to me. I'm smart. Look, I'm a heretic. I know that the Torah is this and Torah. They don't know anything. They're just full of lies. And they hate the Torah scholars more than everybody. Why? Says the Chatam Sofer. The Chatam Sofer says it's because they realized they made a mistake. They realized they made a mistake. No one told you to leave the Torah community, you loser. No one told you to leave the Torah community, you quitter. Nobody told you you couldn't stand up to the heat. You gave up because you had a tough time, because you wanted to make sins, because you wanted to justify your sins. As the Gemara in Masechet Sanhedrin says, Am Yisrael never believed in Avodah Zarah. But they went to Avodah Zarah because that was the way to get the rabbis not to come to them anymore. Because once you see somebody with a statue, once you see somebody marrying a non-Jew, then you're not going to tell them to anything anymore. You're going to say, this guy is mumar. That's it, he's gone. We don't need to come to him anymore. Yeah, but the Gemara says in Masechet Yevamot, a Jew that sleeps with a non-Jew goes to Gehenom and doesn't come out. Masechet Eruvin, page 19. Not Yevamot. Yeah, he's not coming out of Gehenom, but nothing we can do about it. They leave him alone. The heretics are left alone. Nobody wants to fight the heretics. Nobody even wants to sign against them sometimes. Why? They're lost causes. Yeah, but the problem is when you don't fight against them, when you don't fight heresy, then the heretics become stronger and stronger because they are the Erev Rav. And the Chatam Sofer says the one that abandoned everything, he hates the Torah scholars more than anyone else because he has less of a reason to hate the Torah scholars than anybody else. And therefore his hatred is greater than everybody else. The guy that's an Haaretz, he received the Torah at Mount Sinai just like we did. But he chose otherwise. He doesn't want to learn Torah. He wants to go learn about stocks and bonds. He wants to go learn about plumbing. He wants to learn about Buddhism. He wants to learn about whatever he wants to learn about. He doesn't want to learn Torah. He rejected the Torah. He decided to live a life accordingly. But he realizes the Torah scholar has something that he can't buy, even if he has $1 billion. And he hates him for it. It doesn't make sense. Exactly. That's the reason why he hates him, because it doesn't make sense. It's sinat chinam, and therefore it's greater sinah, it's greater hatred than even the Nazis has over the Jew. Even the Hamas has over the Jew, the sinat chinam of the Haaretz. And the wife that couldn't marry the Torah scholar, she hates the Torah scholars even more. Why? She realizes her husband, the adulterer, the loser, the degenerate, could have been otherwise. But she chose somebody that's going to let her walk around with no arms and no legs. Somebody that's going to come here today, maybe not show up for a few days because he has another relationship on the side. But he has a big bank account. But he has freedom. But he allows her to do whatever he wants. But she realized it's the wrong decision. Because now she sees that her kids are cracked out. Now that she sees her kids don't want to be their biological self anymore. Now she sees that her life is a mistake. And she hates the Torah scholar for it. But it doesn't have a reason. It doesn't make any sense. Exactly the reason. The fact that there's no reason for her to hate the Torah scholar, even less of a reason than her husband, makes her hatred of the Torah scholars even greater. And the one that used to be in yeshiva, used to keep Shabbat, used to come to the Bet Midrash, and abandoned ship, he has the least of the reasons to hate the Torah community, because he knows deep inside how good it is. He knows deep inside how holy it is. He knows that Judaism is not represented by the bad people. Sure, there are bad apples here and there. Maybe this one hurts you and that one hurts you, but that's not Judaism. There's bad apples everywhere. There's bad apples in the secular world. There's bad apples in the government. There's bad apples in business. There's bad apples even inside your house. But you don't judge the entire family, the entire business, the entire everything based on a few bad apples. And he knows that. He knows that the tzaddikim, the righteous people, are greater than everybody else. The truth of the Torah is greater than everything else. It's wiser than anything else. He knows the truth. But he chose to go against it because he wanted to fulfill all types of sins. He wanted to justify the sins. He wanted to calm his conscience. He wanted to feed his ego. But eventually, he realized he made a mistake. He realized that he is turning the same heretical argument year after year. Nothing ever changes. Nothing renews. He is still the same exact low-level intellect as he did 10 years ago. Nothing has changed. But the Torah scholar grows, leaps and bounds from year to year, from mountain to mountain, from heaven to heaven. His life improves. His life changes. He's continuously doing more. He is building. Whereas you're still focused on trying to destroy something that's indestructible. And thereby you have even less of a reason to hate the Torah scholars, which makes the baseless hatred of that person even greater than everybody else's. And at the end of it all, the Chatam Sofer adds one teachings that he had from his Rav, the Gaon, Rav Mendele Leilig, who said, the one that used to learn Torah and abandoned and went off the derech hates the Torah scholars more than everybody else, also because the Gemara in Masechet Sukkah says that as a person learns Torah, the more Torah he learns, the greater his evil inclination is. His Torah is greater, but his Yetzirah grows with it. But his increased Torah can handle this bigger Yetzirah, this bigger evil inclination. But once he abandoned the Torah, the Yetzirah didn't go down. It's the same big Yetzirah stays. And therefore, that bigger Yetzirah, says Rav Leilig, that bigger Yetzirah is what's causing him to hate the Torah scholars with a bigger baseless hatred than everybody else, because he has a bigger Yetzirah than the Haaretz or his wife. He learned Torah and thereby had a bigger Yetzirah, bigger evil inclination. But now that he no longer has the weapon against the evil inclination of learning Torah, all he has is the Ra, is the evil. And that evil makes him hate everything that's good, especially the greatest good that exists among the world today, which is the Torah scholars. So you see, Rabotai Karim, the depth of this hatred is not based on money or position, but rather this is a hatred that is the same hatred that caused the destruction of the Bet HaMikdash. The heretics hate those that say the truth. Just like the Haaretz hates those that learn the truth, the Torah scholars. And just like the off the derech, atheist, heretics, anti-God people hate the Torah community and the leaders, hate the rabbis, just like the Zionist, socialist, communist hate the entire Haredi world. It all comes from the same root of baseless hatred, because we were all at Mount Sinai. We all had the same choices available to us. Those that joined the Torah and married it are living it. Those that abandoned it, those that committed treason against their own God, live a life full of regret, a life full of hatred, a life full of mistakes, and have no reason whatsoever to hate their fellow Jews that stayed loyal to God, except for the fact that the loyal Jew is constantly reminding them of their deep-rooted mistake that they are making each and every single day they continue in the path that they're on. So their baseless hatred continues to grow with their misbehavior, with their treason against God. And therefore, says Rav Elchanan Wasserman, you must know that whether it's this one in the government or this one in the community or that one, all of them, HaKadosh Baruch Hu swore that he will eventually wipe them out from the world. But unfortunately, Gadla aniyut hadad biyamenu shechelek gadol me'amenu tomchim otam bekespam לגדלם ולהחזיקם, ולא ידעו ולא יבינו דבר השם. He says, but unfortunately, the poverty in knowledge of the Torah in our days has increased, where a large section of our own people, the religious people, the ones that are supposed to be loyal to the Torah, Ribono Shel Olam, the frum community, actually invest their money to support these Reshaim, these enemies of the Torah, in order to strengthen them. And they don't understand and they don't know the words of God. As it says, B'froach Reshaim kemo esev, that the wicked people grow like grass, says David HaMelech in Psalm 92 verse 8. V'yatzitzu kol po'alei aven lishamdam ad'ad, that eventually HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to destroy the ones that are the wicked grass and all the ones that are supporting them. V'az oy lemachzikem lemechanfem, and then woe to those people that support the heretics, that support the haters of the Torah community, of the Torah scholars. Woe to them. Woe to the flatterers, says Rav Wasserman. Woe to the supporters on that day. And yes, BeEzrat HaKodesh, in the Holy Land, Adavar Baruch HaShemesh, it's bright as the sun, that the land will vomit them. Shetaki Haaretz otam. Ki palterin shel melech, ve'ena mekayemet ovrei avara. And the land will eventually vomit them out, because this is the place of the king and it does not allow the sinners to continue living among it. And these people are making sins to make God mad, to make God angry. And then he finalizes this and he says, Eneni ba bazel lo lekalel velo levarech. I'm not here to curse or to bless anyone. Ela kevan she'advarim ktuvim b'Torah, al korchenu yitkaymu. Rather, since all of what I said is written in the Torah, whether we like it or not, this will all come true. Why? In the Torah, Parashat Achrei Mot, and Parashat Kedoshim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, if we go against the Torah, the land will vomit us. In Parashat Bechukotai, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says that if we don't follow the Torah, we'll get endless amount of punishments. In a few places in the Torah, we fulfill the mitzvah by reading these verses of destroying Amalek, and that Hashem promises and swears on His name that He will wipe out Amalek. All of these things are written in the Torah. It's not about me saying it, Rav Wasserman writing it. This is the word of the living God. And anyone who disagrees with it, who rejects it, who doesn't believe it, is simply part of the heretics that are going against God. As the 13 principles of faith tell us that every word in the Torah is true and will never be changed. Not for this generation or any generation before or after. And that's what Rav Wasserman is telling us, that all of these enemies of the Torah, ultimately HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to take revenge against every single one of them. But what a lot of people don't realize is that it's not just the enemies of the Torah that are socialists, atheists, Zionists, and all types of other ists and isms, but rather those that enable them, that support them, that will also go along for the punishment, even if they themselves are observing Shabbat. As the Rav Wasserman says, woe to them and those that support them, those that are flattering them. Because when you flatter the heretics, when you flatter and support the enemies of God, you become a partner to the crime. So why would some people within our own frum community support heresy, support things that are against the Torah? Rav Wasserman says they're all ignorant people. They don't understand the truth of the Torah, the word of the living God. They don't understand. They don't understand the magnitude of their actions. They're still going to be punished for it. But they don't understand the magnitude of their actions. Because they figure, no, but listen, he looks good. Yeah, but he's a heretic. He supports missionaries. He's somebody that goes against the Torah. He's a Mechalel Shabbat, Boalei Nidot. Yeah, but he looks good. He looks good. I don't know, something about him. I think he's good. I think he's good. One of the least worst presidents in Israel, one of the least worst, was Shimon Peres. Least worst. Not good. Good didn't exist. Because they're all one enemy after the other of the Torah. But Shimon Peres, who supposedly had respect for the Torah, publicly stated, when they asked him about the war against the Haredim, the Jewish world, the Torah scholars, he famously said, once we finish with the Arabs, then we'll go after the Haredim. To him, he was saying this nonchalantly. He wasn't hiding this. This is not like some hidden exposing of something that would... No, this is a public statement. This is what he believes. This is what they all believe, or worse. They all believe the Torah community is an enemy of Am Yisrael. Rather than being Am Yisrael, being the reason why Am Yisrael still exists to this day, is the Torah community, is the Torah scholars. These Erev Rav literally have developed such a hatred for the Torah community to such an extent they've become a different nation within a nation, a mixed multitude, a Erev Rav. And therefore they don't flinch about saying that they want to cause damage to the Torah scholars. They don't flinch. They don't deny in any way. In fact, they put us in the same category as the terrorists that kill Jews in the middle of the street. As Shimon Peres, Imach Shimo, said, first we'll deal with the Arabs, then we'll go after the Haredim. And this is the least worst of all of them. Rabotai Karim, when a person does not follow what the Torah says, everything becomes blurry. Even if you heard the Torah from Moshe Rabbeinu himself. You see, Rav Wasserman finalizes this particular section by saying, I'm not here to bless or to curse. Everything that I wrote here is in the Torah, including that the land will ultimately vomit all of these sinners. The land will not be an enabler of sinners. The land will not be a place for people that go against their God. And even when the spies, the miraglim, that heard the words and saw the words of God at Mount Sinai, got their rabbinical certificate from Moshe Rabbeinu himself, when they came back from that mission, they changed things just a little bit and became an enemy. What was the little bit? They said the same thing as what Rav Wasserman is saying. The land consumes its inhabitants. Don't go there. That was the one difference. You see, Rav Wasserman says, this is the Holy Land. It will vomit the sinners. This is why we have to do tshuva. The Meraglim, on the other hand, said, this land consumes its inhabitants. Meaning, if you go there and you make sins, there's no way you'll survive. So the Meraglim decided it's better off not to go to the land of Israel. Why? Because you're going to make sins. Instead of telling Am Yisrael what Moshe Rabbeinu said, go and do tshuva. You made a sin. Hashem told you can do tshuva. They acted like losers. They acted like the heretics. They acted like those that leave the derech. That as soon as there's a test that they can't feel like they pass, or they can't be the best in, or they can't be as great as they thought they were going to be, whatever obstacle in their way, and they're not overcoming it, instead of just admitting that they need to work harder, they simply give up. Those are the biggest losers, because they choose to lose permanently instead of temporarily. The Meraglim tried to tell Am Yisrael, since you're going to make sins, the land is going to consume you. You're not going to be able to survive in that holy land if you sin. So, might as well not go. Instead of telling them, certainly you should go, it's a very special place. But just know that when you sin, you'll have to do tshuva as soon as possible before it becomes too late. Because this is not just any land. This is the land of the King of Kings. Rabotai Karim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us clear instructions in the Holy Torah to serve Him, to glorify Him, to simply live with Him at all times. But this is all for our own benefit. This is all for us to have good. For us to have a good marriage. For us to be moral people. To be honest. To be just. For us to be like Him. Good. When we abandon the Torah, we're not just abandoning God or His Torah or the laws of the Torah or the mitzvot. No. when we abandon the Torah, we abandon good. Because there's simply no way for us to know what's good without the creator of good giving us the instructions and helping us follow them. If a person does not see that after hearing all of these words, perhaps they should check their hearing, perhaps they should increase the volume, perhaps they should listen to the whole thing all over again. Maybe they didn't understand. Because it's as clear as day. If not from my words, if not from the words of Rav Wasserman, then at the very least, from the feelings you have in your heart. If you don't love Torah and Torah scholars more than you love anything else, there's something lacking there. In fact, you may even find yourself hating some of them. It's only because deep down your neshama knows that you should be just like them. And you can. But it all starts with doing tshuva. It all starts with following the Torah. It all starts with getting rid of that baseless hatred. Because it doesn't make any sense. And that's what makes it more lethal than any other hatred that exists. Even the hatred that everyone keeps talking about from the anti-Semites, from the terrorists, and all of the other enemies of Am Yisrael. The Navi tells us, your conquerors, your destroyers will come from within you. It wasn't just a catchy phrase. It was a nevuah. It was a prophecy of what will be every single day until Moshiach arrives. Which is a time that there's not going to be any more tshuva. There's not going to be any more opportunities to change back to the good side. Change today. Tshuva today. And BeEzrat HaShem, you too will succeed. Thank you for learning with me. May Hashem bless each and every single one of you that is sharing, that's supporting, that is doing everything possible to apply all of this to their life and to as many people's lives as possible. And may HaKadosh Baruch Hu fulfill all of the blessings of the Torah in your lives, in this world and the next. Call to B'chad B'atzlacha.
אני מברך את הרבנים, הרב ירון ראובן, הרב אפרים כחלון, ראשי ארגון בעזרת השם, שהלכו בפי עליון, שעלו מעלה מעלה, יהיה להם ברכה והצלחה, הקדוש ברוך הוא ימלא בישועות ליבם לטובה ולברכה, שבכל אשר יפנו ישכילו ויצליחו, יזכרו לעשות כאלה וכאלה, הודיעו תורה לאדירה, אמן ואמן.